Welcome back to the Daily Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. We are up to section 68 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Let's take a look at the text. Okay. When you set out on a journey, whether from home or from a place where you lodged overnight en route, or if you're returning home after having left the boundaries of the city, which is 70 2/3 amos beyond the last house. So we're talking about 30 meters beyond the last house of the city. You should say Tfilas Haderech, the traveler's prayer. You hear outside B'fanecha, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Aviseinu. May it be our will, Hashem, our God, and the God of our fathers, that you lead us in peace, etc. It's found inside the Siddur. This prayer is said in the plural form, except for V'stidneni Lachein. So we say that may Hashem, may you protect us, may you take us in peace or to peace. And everything is in the plural. Even if I'm traveling by myself, we still mention it in plural besides for one particular clause. Why? Because when we speak in plural, then when we include others in our prayers, then our prayers are readily accepted. Okay. Another point which he doesn't mention here in the Kitzur is that you only make the bracha once you're already en route. But if you're still within 70 amos, no, I guess it is what he said over here. Yeah, he says after having left the boundaries of the city, that is 70 2/3. So that means that you've gone en route. Once you've left the city, you're about 30 meters out. You make the bracha, you say it in the plural to include everybody in the prayers. It is preferable to say Tfilas Haderech after you have traveled a mil, which is about a kilometer beyond the outskirts of the city. So I guess it's on this point that in other authorities, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch says that you don't need to go so far. But once you are en route and stay overnight in any city, then since you are already traveling, then you're able to say it in the morning even before you leave. So when you're leaving the original city, then you say it once you have taken about 70 steps outside of the city. But once you've left home and you're traveling, then you could say it in the morning because you are already on the journey. Moving along. Now, we don't say Tfilas Haderech unless you need to travel at least a parsa. The parsa is approximately 4 mil. A mil is about a kilometer. So that means that you wouldn't say Tfilas Haderech on a journey that was less than 4 kilometers. Even if you're going outside of the city limits, you would be traveling for at least 4 kilometers in order to say Tfilas Haderech. One moment. It's preferable to recite it within the first parsa, so that would be the first kilometer. If you forgot, you could say it as long as you're still on the road, provided that you have not yet reached within a parsa of the city which you intend to spend the night. So once you're already within a few kilometers of your destination, then it is too late to say the Tfilas Haderech. Halacha number 3. Tfilas Haderech should be said following another bracha. Why? Because the bracha of Tfilas Haderech ends with Baruch Atah Hashem, but it doesn't start with Baruch Atah Hashem. And it's nice when a bracha both begins with Hashem's name and ends with Hashem's name. So since the bracha of Tfilas Haderech does not begin with Hashem's name and only ends with Hashem's name. Therefore, by saying it in immediate proximity to another bracha, then we include it, then we surround it by Baruch Atah Hashem, both at the beginning and the end. The Baruch Atah Hashem at the beginning from the bracha before it, and the Baruch Atah Hashem at the conclusion of the Tfilas Haderach. Therefore, if you're departing in the morning, and we'll say the morning brachas while en route, or if you launched overnight on a trip in any city, in which case you could say Tfilas Haderach right away before you even travel, because you are on the journey, then you would say the morning brachas and then add Tfilas Haderach to them. He says, when's a good part to put in the Tfilas Haderach? After the morning blessing, so part of the morning blessings, we say, we conclude a bracha who bestows bountiful kindness upon his people Israel, and that would be an appropriate time to mention that he should give us a safe trip as well. But if you depart from home after davening, then, so at this point you've already davened, so how would you make Tfilas Haderach in proximity to a bracha? You would either drink something, make the after bracha on the food that you ate or drank, which starts with Baruch Atah Hashem, and right after that, Tfilas Haderach. So again, this blessing of Tfilas Haderach is surrounded by Blessed are you Hashem, both at the beginning and at the end. Or if you've just used the washroom and you're saying a bracha for using the washroom, then that bracha could also serve to surround the bracha of Tfilas Haderach, both before it and after it. Now, you should stand while saying the bracha. If you're riding an animal or traveling in a wagon or nowadays a car, then if it's possible to stop the animal, then stop. Because as long as you're riding the animal, it's equivalent to walking. So what that actually means is that if possible, you should actually stop the car, make the bracha, and then continue on your journey. You should actually pull over to the side of the road. If it's not possible to stop the animal, you may recite it while riding. So don't try to bring the whole plane to a stop, because that might be a little bit dangerous. But if you are in your own car, then it's good to pull over to the side of the road so that you can say the bracha while standing or situated in one place. And that will also give you the benefit of being able to say it inside a siddur, as opposed to saying it by heart. Because if you say it by heart, then you might be making mistakes. So what's this idea of saying the Tfilas Haderach while standing? So he quotes from the Gemara, which says, one who could be good should not be called evil. And this idiom implies that when one can undertake a more stringent practice without undue difficulty, he should prefer this to a more lenient one. So since it's better to make a bracha standing than seated, obviously a food bracha is different because you're eating seated and you don't want to make an interruption between the bracha and the food. But in general, brachas that we make are often said standing, so preferably if you're able to stand for this bracha to be recited or to pull over the car, then do the bracha in a better way rather than taking shortcuts. Okay, now Tfilas Haderach is only recited only once a day. So if you're doing a lot of trips, a lot of stretches, then you would only say it once a day. But if you planned on spending the night in the city, so you thought you had reached your destination for the day, and afterwards reconsidered and decided to continue onwards or to go back home, then you would say a bracha a second time, because since you intended to end your journey now, the original Tfilas Haderach expires, and so therefore a new bracha is necessary. If you travel day and night, or if you spend the night in an uninhabited place, then the first time you recite Tfilas Haderach, you recite it with a closing bracha, and the remaining days you recite it without a closing bracha. So if you're on a multiple day journey, then you don't say Hashem's name each day. You say it without Hashem's name. Because as long as you do not spend the night in an uninhabited place, it's considered one. As in an inhabited place, it's considered one continuous journey. So for example, if you're on an airplane and the airplane is doing an overnight flight, and you said Tfilas Haderach yesterday, then you went to sleep, and now it's the next day, is the time to make Tfilas Haderech again, since you're all on that same overnight red-eye journey. So you would not be able, you should still say it, but you don't want to say Hashem's name in vain. So you would say Tfilas Haderech, but without saying Hashem's name, so that there wouldn't be a concern of it being a bracha in vain. Okay, a number of other points relating to davening in general, in addition to the Tfilas Haderech prayer, the prayer for travelers. So before going on a journey, you should give tzedakah. As the pasuk says, righteousness will precede him and he will set his footsteps upon the way. Tzedek lefanav yahalech v'yasem derech lefa'avav. So we see that before putting your footsteps on the way, before traveling, it's appropriate to first give tzedakah. You should take leave from the leaders of the city, that they may bless you with success on your journeys. If you're about to travel, then you should get a bracha from your teacher or from your Rebbe. That is also a halach in Shulchan Aruch, to get the bracha of the Rebbe before you leave, or of your teacher before you leave. And you should endeavor that some people escort you to the edge of the city. Obviously, you're not here to inconvenience other people, but if you have people that truly are wanting to care for you, and you're able to have them escort you out of the city, then they should do so. A big part, actually, of hospitality, of achdasas orachim, of having guests, is to not only host them, but to actually accompany them on their way. In fact, when you do escort somebody, then when you can't go any further, then the best way to escort him is to wait at the final point that you could go until he's out of sight, and so that you know that for as long as you could reach, whether in person or by sight, he is okay. When escorting a friend and when taking leave of him, you should remain standing in your place until the traveler disappears from view. Sorry, I just mentioned that outside. Those who bless the traveler should not say go in peace, but rather go to peace. Why? David said to Absalom, his enemy, go in peace. He went and was hung. Whereas Yisrael said to Moshe, his son-in-law, go to peace. And Moshe rose to success. So I guess go in peace sounds like go out of this, leave this world, die in peace, as opposed to go to peace means that it's on a particular journey. So you certainly should not be wishing somebody go in peace. Rather, go to peace. While traveling, you should be occupied with Torah study. As the Tehillim says, that when you travel on the roads, sorry, not Tehillim, but as we say in the Shema, that you should teach the Torah to your students, when you're in your house, when you're on the road. So it's most appropriate while traveling to say words of Torah. That said, don't get too involved in your learning if you're the one that's driving, so that you don't actually miss the way. Unless you're a passenger, in which case you certainly can get very involved. Otherwise, keep the learning simple so that you don't get lost, so that doesn't bring you to danger. You should also say some Tehillim each day with concentration and humility, and you should take care to take along bread even when traveling to a nearby destination. So this is the Yiddish Mamba that wants to always make sure that you've got enough food for the plane ride. Even if you've ordered a kosher meal, it's good to take some bread along as well. You should also take along tzitzis. It means extra strings, lest your tzitzis become invalid. Being unable to obtain another, you're going to not be able to do the mitzvah. So keep security. Practically, if you don't just travel with one pair of tzitzis, then if one of the strings get ripped, you'll be left with nothing. Or I would add to that, don't take just one yarmulke. In case the yarmulke falls out the window, have a second one so that you are covered. Excuse the pun. A person should always arrive when it is good and depart when it is good. What does it mean to leave when it's good and depart when it's good? When traveling to an inn, you should arrive while the sun is still shining. And you should wait until the sun rises before departing. And then things will be well for you. As it says, Hashem saw the light that it was good. And you should not overeat while on a journey. So the final 2 points are that one should travel during the day. One should plan on leaving only once it's already light. and arriving at one's destination before dark. So we want to make sure that we travel in a way that is safe. If you travel when it's dark, you might fall into a pothole. Believe it or not, that's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. Sheba yipol ba'achas hapsachim. You might fall into one of the openings. The potholes is an old problem. And nowadays, though, the commentaries say that one can be lenient about traveling at night since you have lights. As long as you have lights, if that's safe, then that makes it less problematic. But certainly you do not want to put yourself in danger. Shulchan Aruch also adds that if you're in an area where you know all the potholes, you know exactly where they are, you would be allowed to travel at night in such areas as long as you're not traveling alone. If you're traveling alone, then there's a concern of spiritual, I don't know if it's demons or shaidim or how a person shouldn't be alone at night and ever. So in summary, we're saying that you close up for today. When you do travel, I'm not going to go through all the points. Maybe we'll touch on them at the beginning of tomorrow's class. But the final point, you should travel during the day because it's dangerous to travel at night because you might fall into a hole, a pothole, a manhole. That said, nowadays, if you have lighting, so some commentaries are lenient. Furthermore, if you know the city well, you know the potholes, also room to be lenient, but not alone. You shouldn't be traveling at night by yourself because that is not only not physically safe, but also spiritually not safe to be by yourself alone at night. Pirkei Avos says somebody who goes alone at night is actually guilty of his life. It's not a good thing to be going about places at night by oneself.